Hello everyone. Tonight and beyond the headlines, the countdown to 2027 has officially begun. At its headquarters in Abuja, the Independent National Electoral Commission has released the full timetable for Nigeria's next general elections, fixing Presidential National Assembly polls for Saturday, February 20th, 2027. By law, INEC must issue its notice at least 360 days before voting day. It has now done so. But beyond the calendar, critical questions emerge on the show today. Is INEC truly ready? Can Nigeria afford another disputed election? What happens to the controversy surrounding the Electoral Act Amendment Bill? And how will early campaigns be regulated? With over 1.04 trillion naira projected election spending, are we investing in credibility or just logistics? The race to 2027 has begun. I'm joined on the show tonight by Dozie Ikedife, who's APC Southeast Organizing Secretary, and ADC Chieftain Ndubisi Nwobo. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program this evening. Let me begin with Mr. Nwobo on the show tonight. Let's start broadly. Does this timetable inspire confidence in you? Would you say that we are institutionally stronger today than we were before 2023?
First and foremost, thank you for having me, TVC. Basically, I think it's within the purview of INEC to set the timelines for the elections.
To focus on developments coming from INEC, INEC is also stating clearly that it's spending some 1.04 trillion naira for this election, huge amount of money in a pre-election year, and we're going to see precisely what that means for the Nigerian economy and what exactly we are paying for. Prior to this latest development from INEC headquarters, conversations have been on as to controversies rocking the election amendment bill before the National Assembly. The Senate constituted a 12-man committee where issues relating to this development will now be harmonized with committee members at the House of Representatives. Mr. Nwobo, can you hear me now? Beautiful. You were saying that it's within INEC's rights to release this timetable within the constituted period of 360 days. But I'm asking if you think that our election institutions are stronger today than they were before the 2023 election.
I doubt so, and I do not think that the institution, the INEC Independent Electoral Commission, is much more stronger today. Rather, I would say that the INEC, as it's considered today, is feeling much more weakness. We can only look forward to mandate. As the quantum of resources to be dispensed for this coming 2027 election. Not only the funds that make an election credible, it is building the confidence, and it is being being able to work within its own constitutional mandate, devoid of interference from other sections.
Mr. Nwobo, I don't know where your pessimism is coming from, but the last time we spoke, I think you were contesting in the Anambra governorship election. Beyond meeting the 360-day legal requirement, what do you think INEC must do differently based on your experience in Anambra?
Yeah, thank you. From my experience, first and foremost, the issue of logistics. There's a great need for materials to be in place at the various polling stations in good time, so that simultaneously elections could take off in all polling areas, so that when it gets to the point of time for elections to stop, it will be something for all the polling units across the country. So they need to get their logistics right. More often than not, you find out that materials get to certain polling areas very late. And that leads to a lot of disenfranchisement of voters, because when voters come out in the morning and they don't see the electoral officials, at a point in time, they get disillusioned and people get to go doing some other things other than coming to vote as they had planned. So they need to get their logistics right. The second area is the issue of security. Our security agencies should be seen clearly to be working for all Nigerians, regardless of your political persuasion. And that's why people are clamoring on the issue of real-time transmission of results. Because immediately after the polling exercise, at the polling unit levels, you find out that the citizenry mass at the polling units. So it's very difficult for the results to be manipulated at that level. But the point is that from that point, and they start going to the collation centers, the citizenry starts thinning down, and then the security. It's only when if the agent gets into the collation center that he can even debate whether the result being collected is the right one or wrong one. Because there are instances when agents, when they try to get to the collation centers, the security agencies chase them away. And it's only the political party that has already compromised the security system that is only allowed to enter into the collection center.
What critics say is that those asking for mandatory transmission of results are not being realistic, and they are not showing some fails based on the network, then go back to the form EC8A. Do you subscribe to that? Well, Mr. Nwobu, I'm asking you if you are comfortable. Yes, I can hear you now. I was asking if you are comfortable with the provision being proposed by the Senate that it's okay to transmit live in real time, but if the network fails, then go back to the form EC8.
Hello?
Mr. Nwobu, can you hear me? We have a difficulty staying connected with Mr. Nwobu, who is an ADC chieftain, who has joined us on the show this evening. Interesting developments as regards the real-time transmission of results. And you see that the APC and the opposition appears to be sharply divided as to why this must happen ahead of 2027. We've also spoken with INEC spokesperson on this show, who was honest enough to open up on the challenges that the commission has experienced in previous elections. The Senate is now, saying that it's okay to transmit live, but if the network fails, then you have to return to the manual process to authenticate how people have voted per polling unit. The challenge really that is being talked about here is accountability and transparency, the ability of Nigerians to be able to rely on the integrity of the process and to be sure that the numbers, as was recorded at the polling units, tally with what's happening at the collation centers. And that is the conversation we've been having ahead of the big one in 2027. If the National Assembly passes this amendment as it is, will these other parties support or resist it? Already you are hearing reference to conversations even outside the shores of Nigeria, where, people are saying it is easy to manipulate, elections electronically other than doing it manually. Hello, Mr. Nwobu. Walk us through precisely the position of your party on this real-time transmission, because what critics are saying is that asking for real transmission of results without recourse to some form of challenges with network availability is not being realistic.
Let's be honest with ourselves. In 2023, the National Assembly results were uploaded real time. There were no challenges. Are you hearing me?
I can hear you.
Okay, there were no challenges with the National Assembly results. They were transmitted real time. The only glitch came apologies to the INEC. Glitch came up when it got to the presidential upload. Okay? Now, that was 2023. We are heading towards 2027, 3-4 years away. So I believe INEC should be able to do better. These humongous resources they are requesting for, what is it going to be used if not to make sure that the technology works effectively? And if it's for the technology to work effectively, why are people finding excuses for INEC? The National Assembly have been told, do your own job, lawmaking. Leave the INEC to battle with their own issues, which they are requesting resources to make it possible that they will be able to deploy and achieve success. Like I was saying before, the problem with elections in Nigeria is that at the polling stations, the citizenry are at the polling stations all through. You don't have too many security agencies overweighing the citizenry at the various polling stations. But the moment you finish at the polling stations and you start going to the collection centers, the citizens start thinning out. And then you meet the security agents who are now armed, unlike those who are at the polling stations who are not armed. So you start meeting security agencies who are fully armed. And when they are compromised, what happens next? They chase away the agents of a political party they do not like. And then when they chase them away, like some people are saying, no, every agent has a result. If somebody brings something else, you can argue it. Is it not when you are inside that collection center that you can argue? And why expose Nigerians to dangers of insecurity and all kinds of madness that happens at collection centers when, if the results are uploaded real time on the IREV, every Nigerian will be seeing the results from his or her bedroom. See what is coming in from all the various police stations across the country. So that's why for us and for greater majority of Nigerians, we are requesting for real-time transmission of results.
In fairness, Mr. Wobu,
they know the truth.
Do you think
that is the only thing that can guarantee transparent and fair elections in Nigeria?
I hear you.
And for me, I've said that any legislator who is against real-time transmission
Well, I'm just wondering, Mr. Wobu, if you think that INEC is in full control of all of the factors needed to ensure that this works seamlessly, and whether or not it is completely nonsense to create an alternative in cases where, internet facilities fail, which in all honesty is what happens every day in Nigeria. I understand that from 2023 till now, we should have improved tremendously, but it's also important that we come to terms with our reality, especially day-to-day reality, even outside election day. Just as we speak right now, we're having challenge connecting with you via Zoom. I mean, what are the chances that that won't happen on election day? Now, what happens, for instance, if we don't create an alternative? Let's even say that the internet facility was compromised. Will that, necessarily nullify the entirety of the election process, saying that we're spending over 1 trillion naira, for the exercise in 2027? Very interesting conversations around this, especially amongst lawmakers. We noticed that the Senate had to convene an emergency session to return to have these issues addressed. They're saying it is not Uhuru yet. No permanent decisions have been made. We're going to see an harmonized session between the Senate and indeed the House of Representatives. On the other side, INEC is warning that primaries conducted outside approved timelines may be invalid. Now, for the APC, Mr. Wobu, we seem to understand that almost all the political stakeholders are vying for a singular candidate. We've seen multiple endorsements in this regard across the country. It means, therefore, that perhaps your party is going to have a lot to do. And I'm wondering what you think about what ADC must do to remain the same after the primary, because it's now potentially expected to be a keenly contested one. You have the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who has been running for election, for presidential election, for as far back as 1993. You have Peter Obi, who was a major contender in the last election cycle and who's now moved into the ADC, I believe, with his obedience movement. How do you see all of this play out, ahead of your party's primary?
Competition is the very great source of democracy. People should have alternatives. People should be presented with alternatives that they will look at and then determine who would best be able to take control and then handle the affairs of the nation. So for the ADC, we have His Excellency Mr. Peter Obi, we have His Excellency Atiku Abubakar, we have His Excellency Rotimi Amechi, we have Honorable Nwajoba, and there may be some others who are going to come into the block before the time. It's only when the party leaves the
Well, in 2023, internal disputes in some way weakened several parties. We saw that play out before our very eyes, and there are conversations around what concrete reforms parties have made. Even within the APC, I had spoken with the Nasarawa State Governor recently, who was honest enough to acknowledge that even though majority of the party stakeholders are behind Mr. President, it cannot say the same of local politics at state levels where there are multiplicity of interest. He mentioned that he cannot even that he cannot publicly mention the number of people who want to take over from him as governor of Nasarawa State. So all eyes on APC, especially with the number of people coming into their party. We're going to see how the ruling party is able to manage that reality come 2027, or even this year, when the primaries are expected to hold. I'm finding it difficult to hold you online, but I'm also getting reactions as regards the electronic transmission conversation that we had earlier. Someone here is saying, what about multiple hacking of INEC site on election day, which is also valid? I'm sure you've seen that video by Elon Musk, who by all standard is a tech guy, and who acknowledged that he doesn't believe in computer voting, that it's easy to hack. Do we have the structure and the formidable system to ensure that our systems, can work without compromise on election day? But indeed, you have also made a very important point about how much INEC is spending, and that's a conversation we're going to sit with in the coming days, because INEC is projecting over 1.04 trillion naira for elections and related activities. Are we paying for systems, or are we paying for logistics? Is that figure even justified in today's economy? We need to see the breakdown. We need to understand where the money is coming from and how judiciously it's going to be used. Should Nigeria now be moving toward more digital, cost-efficient election systems so that we don't spend fortune because we are organizing an election? We have to do that once every 4 years. That's a lot of money. If 2027 is disputed despite all that spending, who takes responsibility? Is it INEC? Is it political parties? Is it people in government? There are also huge concerns that INEC has started raising, and it has to do with premature campaigns disguised as mobilization rallies. We see many of that today scattered across states, people wearing uniforms, coming up with different names, appointing individuals, going to the nook and crannies to sell their candidates. When does mobilization become illegal campaigning? Will INEC come out to educate Nigerians? Will INEC begin to sanction early violators? Does it have the courage to do that if it involves powers that be and political parties in power? what is the thin line between mobilization and campaign, and who is setting those lines? And are we going to see some form of prosecution when these lines are crossed? Well, parties are already in campaign mode, no doubt, but there are laws guiding this, and things have to be done according to law. We have lost so much time, Mr. Nwobu, but I'm told you are back. Let's quickly touch on voter turnout in parts of the Southeast where you are. It's been historically low. What are you doing what would you say parties are doing, including yours, to rebuild trust and participation ahead of 2027?
Democracy in Nigeria is that the citizenry lack confidence in the electoral umpire. The citizenry, they feel that their votes will not count. And when you have this kind of mindset, it's very disturbing. And that's why people like us are worried with what the Senate, the Global, the Senate is playing with the amendment to the Electoral Act. If real transmission of results, real time from polling units to the IREV is in any way killed, it will lead to greater voter apathy, because the electorate will feel that there's no need, they're going out to go and vote. So to get the Southeast to vote in the election, presently there has been a scaling down of insecurity challenges in the Southeast. And if they have the confidence that their votes will count, I can assure you that preponderance of the citizens in the Southeast will turn out en masse to vote.
That's our time.
2027 election.
ADC Chieftain Ndubisi Uwobi, thank you so much for joining us on the program this evening. Interestingly, many of your governors in the region have now moved to the ruling party. We'll see what that means for the coming election in 2027. Thank you so much.
You will agree with me that it's not the governors that vote on the election.
All right, we'll see.
It is the citizens that votes.
Well, okay? numbers don't lie.
The governors have one vote to put up, okay?
All right.
But the majority of the masses of the country will be the ones that will determine who will govern them at the end of the day, if votes count.
We'll test that narrative in the coming months. Thank you so much for joining us. The timetable is out, everyone. The amount to be spent has been announced, 1.04 trillion naira. The mobilization has begun, but credibility will not be decided in Abuja. It will be decided at the polling unit. We'll be back next week with more. Remember that the town square reconvenes tomorrow at 2 p.m. I am Nifemi Oguntoye.